What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the first picks video that I have done in a while. I had to take quite a substantial break from doing these because of, wedding planning and working on other film room episodes and all that kind of stuff. But we're back. I have been posting picks on Twitter every single week, so some of you have been keeping track of those. I have really kind of improved my percentage from the terrible hit rate that I had early in the year. I'm up to 63%. I'm trying to get to 75 by the end of the season, which is proving to be a lot more difficult this year than I expected, just because people keep winning and losing that nobody really expects. I mean, this NFL season has been absolutely crazy. There's a lot of teams that are doing a lot better and a lot worse than everybody thought they would, but that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it challenging, and I'm really excited to see where this all ends up, because I honestly have no idea who's going to win the Super Bowl right now. It is so wide open. But with that, let's get to this week's picks. We've already seen Tennessee and Pittsburgh. I picked Pittsburgh like pretty much everybody else did. It's not really that shocking of a pick. They're at home. They're a great team. It's prime time. The Titans are good, but they're not really, take down the Steelers in prime time on the road kind of good yet. So that was a no-brainer for me. I wasn't really shocked by that. But let's move on to the games that have not happened yet, starting with Detroit going to Chicago. I'm actually going with Chicago here because the Bears are a completely different team at home than they are on the road. They are much better at Soldier Field. They've got a run game. Detroit's run defense is shaky at best. I think they're going to pound the ball with Jordan Howard. They're not going to give too much for Mitch Trubisky to do, especially because they got Darius Slay and Glover Quinn. You don't really want to test those guys through the air that much. So this is going to be a Jordan Howard game. It's going to be a defensive game. Eventually, I think the Bears are going to pull it out. It's probably going to be within 3 or 4 points at most, but I do think the Bears are going to win this game. Moving on, we've got Jacksonville going to Cleveland, and I mean, this is pretty much the easiest pick of the week. I'm going with the Jaguars. Everybody else is going with the Jaguars. There's really not a whole lot of explanation needed. They're a good team. The Browns are not. End of story. Next up, Ravens going to Green Bay. This is not a very exciting game to me. Neither offense is very good. At least with Aaron Rodgers out, the Green Bay offense is not very good to me. But I do like the Ravens defense better than the Packers defense. I think that's going to be the difference in this game. The Ravens have looked entirely different with Brandon Williams back on the field. They're a much better team with Brandon Williams back on the field. I think ultimately that's going to be the deciding factor, especially because the Ravens are coming off a bye, so they've had a couple weeks to prepare for this game. They know Brett Hundley inside and out because they've had so much time to study his admittedly limited tape, but I trust John Harbaugh to find his weaknesses with that full extra week to study him, and I think this is not going to be a very close game. I think the Ravens are going to run away with it. Even though they're in Green Bay, I think the Ravens run away with it. So Baltimore wins. Next game, we got Arizona taking a road trip to Houston, and this is another game that, honestly, even though I'm a Texans fan, I don't even want to watch this game. It's going to be terrible. It's backup quarterback against backup quarterback. I mean, freaking Blaine Gabbert and Tom Savage. Does that excite anybody? No, not at all. I'll probably end up watching something else during the morning slot because it just that does not look like a good football game to me. I do think the Texans are going to win it because they've still got Jadeveon Clowney. They've still got Lamar Miller. They still have some really good players they can lean on, especially Clowney. But man, it's going to be ugly. It's going to be real ugly. It's probably going to be like a 10 to 15 snooze fest that I want no part of watching it. But I do think the Texans are going to win that game. Now, moving on, we got Tampa going to Miami. This was the game that was supposed to be played in week 1, but it got delayed because of the hurricane. They both had their bye weeks taken away, so they had 16 straight weeks of action. This was originally going to be their bye week, and now they're actually playing a football game. I think Miami's going to win. Tampa just they can't get out of their own way. Jameis Winston's banged up. I don't like their prospects at all for the rest of the season, even though I'm not really a fan of Miami either. In terms of their potential to make the playoffs or even just do anything in the playoffs if they happen to make it. I don't think they will, but if they do happen to make the playoffs, I don't think they're going to get far. But I do think they're going to win this game just because even though they're a mediocre team at best, they're playing against a bad team at best in Tampa Bay. And that's one of the biggest surprises of the year for me, was Tampa Bay being kind of awful. I thought they were going to be a challenger for the NFC. I thought they were going to be arguably the best team in the NFC South. And they cannot win. They cannot win. And it's frustrating to watch. I'm going to have to figure it out in the offseason what went wrong. But my God, they look terrible. Two teams that do have it together, though, are the Rams and the Vikings. They're meeting this week in Minnesota. I'm going with the Rams in this game, even though I really do like the Vikings. I love their defense. Case Keenum is playing so far above any level that he's ever played at previously. I mean, they're a damn good team. But the Rams, I watched them live last week when the Texans came to LA. It was the first Rams game I went to at the Coliseum. And you don't really appreciate their speed as a team until you see it in person. This is a fast team. They have excellent play calling with Sean McVay. He's extremely inventive. Jared Goff trusts him implicitly. They have a great relationship. I was watching them work together on the sidelines, and they have complete trust in one another. Goff is dealing. He's got weapons all over the field. Todd Gurley is an absolute monster. He's probably going to be the offensive player of the year. Not to mention the defense still has a ton of talent when you look at Aaron Donald, and you got Mark Barron and Tremaine Johnson and all that. I mean, it's a very talented team that finally has good coaching, and that makes them extraordinarily dangerous. I think they're probably going to be one of the last 4 teams left in the NFC when the playoffs roll around. I think they're going to make the divisional round at least, and they have a shot to make the NFC Championship if they can keep playing like they have been lately. It's been really fun to watch. They're extremely balanced. They're extremely talented. And for once, they finally have their shit together from a coaching standpoint. So, very good team. I think they get the road win in Minnesota. And that's going to be huge down the line when you look at the NFC playoff picture. Now, next up, we got the Chiefs going to New York to take on the Giants. Again, I don't really need to analyze this game much. The Chiefs are going to win. The Giants are terrible. The locker room is a mess. McAdoo's not going to be there next year. I guarantee you he's not going to be there next year. And I'm just going to chalk this one up to a lost season. I didn't think they were going to make the playoffs, but I didn't expect them to be this terrible. It's really kind of disheartening to see a team with that much talent implode that heavily. But here we are. So Chiefs get the win on the road. It's a game that looked really good in the preseason, and now it just looks terrible. Anyway, moving on, we got Washington going to New Orleans. I've done a few videos on the Saints in the last few weeks. They are extremely talented, extremely balanced. They finally reclaimed their identity from the glory years in that 2008 to 2011 period. And man, I don't think anybody in the NFL wants to play them right now, especially at home. They're in the Dome, where I think they're, especially when they play like this with a good run game and a good defense, and you still got Drew Brees that can throw it all over the place. I think they are about as unbeatable as it gets at home with how they're playing right now. The first 2 weeks of the season were kind of an anomaly. I think they were still trying to figure it out and gel. But with how the Saints are playing right now, I would not put any team in the NFL over them in New Orleans, even the Redskins. And I like the Redskins. They're not a bad team. But, man, the Saints are going to put it on them. They're really going to put it on them. They're a damn good team. They're playing in their home turf. And I'm honestly kind of expecting a slaughter here. I think they're going to win by at least 2 touchdowns. And speaking of winning by 2 touchdowns, I think the Chargers are going to win big against the Bills. And I don't mean that as an indictment against the Bills, but Nathan Peterman making his first career start on the road against very talented pass rushers. I don't really like his prospects that much. You know, the Chargers are a very talented team that never really figures out how to put together consistent wins, but at least once or twice a year they absolutely destroy somebody. And I think this week is going to be one of those games. I think they're going to destroy the Bills. They're going to bring all that talent to bear at home, take out some frustrations on a rookie quarterback making his first start. I think it's going to be a blowout. It's really going to be a blowout. And my God, the Chargers really need a blowout like that. They really do. Moving on, we got the Bengals going to Denver. And this is another game that I really have no interest in watching whatsoever. Brock Osweiler is offensive to me as a quarterback on my television screen. I had to put up with him all year last year as a Texans fan, and it sucked. I hate watching him play. I hate watching him infect primetime games with the Broncos. I have no interest in ever watching Brock Osweiler play football again. He's terrible. He's absolutely terrible. And the fact that he's starting really tells you how dire the quarterback situation is in Denver. They have zero faith in anybody on that roster, Brock included, even though they brought him in saying, oh yeah, he did so well for us a few years ago. I fell for that trap myself. The tape looked really good a couple years ago, and then he became one of the worst quarterbacks I have ever seen, and he has not dug himself out of that hole. So until he does, I have no interest in watching him because it's just bad football. It's just bad football. I don't want to watch him play. I like Andy Dalton. I think Andy Dalton makes some dumb mistakes sometimes, but you know, he's at least a good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback, but he's a good quarterback. So I think I'm going to side with the good quarterback here over the awful quarterback and chalk this one up for the Bengals. Now, next up, we got another game that looked really good in the preseason, and it still looks good. I'm still interested in watching it. It doesn't really have, however, the same pizzazz that it did a few months ago. It was a battle between kind of AFC contenders. You got the Patriots taking on the Raiders. But I still really enjoy watching Derek Carr. I enjoy watching Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree and obviously Marshawn Lynch, even though he's not really doing what people expected him to do this year. I'll watch any game with Marshawn Lynch in it just because I love the dude. But man, the Patriots are rolling. They look just as good as they always do when the leaves start changing. I mean, as the year goes on, they get stronger and stronger and stronger. And it's no different this year. I think they're as good a bet as anybody to go to the Super Bowl. And I think they're going to run over the Raiders here, even though it's a road game for them. I think they're going to probably win by at least 10 points because that's what they do. You know, as you get into Thanksgiving and later, I mean, the Patriots just become this unstoppable cold weather machine. And my God, it's fascinating to watch every single year how they just do it over and over and over again. And unfortunately, the Raiders are going to fall victim to that this week. And, you know, speaking of machines here, the Eagles look like a devastating machine in their own right. I mean, it's arguably the best team in the league. They've got an MVP quarterback. I think Carson Wentz is running away with the MVP trophy right now. And they're taking on a Dallas team that is reeling. They just lost Ezekiel Elliott for 6 games, even though they're playing at home. And I love watching Wentz versus Dak. I think the Eagles are going to win this game pretty handily. I think the Cowboys are a completely different team without Zeke. Everybody knows that. And not to mention they're going against a very good front seven, a very good defensive line that the Eagles got. I love the Eagles' safeties. I love their weapons with Alshon Jeffrey and Nelson Aguilar having a kind of revival to his career. Not to mention, I mean, they just got Jay Ajayi. I forgot they got Jay Ajayi as well. So I think the Eagles are going to win this game. I think from a talent and coaching and execution perspective, they're arguably the best team in the NFL right now, whether it's home or away. It's hard for me to pick anybody over them unless it's maybe the Saints in New Orleans. But I'm not going to pick Dallas without Zeke over Philadelphia, even though it's in Dallas. So Eagles win on the road. And that brings us to the last game of the week, the final game of the week. A really good game, even though it's been kind of mired by injuries. Richard Sherman's gone. Cam Chancellor's gone. I mean, God, it seemed like most of the Seahawks defense got hurt last week. But there's something about Russell Wilson, man. Even though when his back is against the wall and he's got no help around him, the dude he finds ways to win. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him duel with Matt Ryan here. Even going back to Wilson's rookie year in 2012, they've had some really good battles, the Seahawks and the Falcons. I think it's kind of an underrated rivalry in the league because they've had some really good games over the years. So I'm looking forward to this one. I think I would have loved to see Julio against Sherman again. That's obviously not going to happen. But I still think there's a lot of really intriguing personnel matchups in this game. And it's in Seattle, so anything can happen when it's in Seattle. Ultimately, I do think the Falcons are going to win. But the fact that it's at the Clink, you got the 12s, the rockin' in prime time. It's so loud. Russell Wilson is a magician. I mean, I don't blame anybody for taking the Seahawks in this game, even though they got hit by so many injuries because of those factors. But ultimately, I do think the Falcons are going to win. It'll be a close one, probably a one-possession game at most, but I do think they're going to win. So those are my picks for the week. Got several kind of good team versus bad team locks, but there are some intriguing matchups. I'm really looking forward to the Rams game. Obviously, I'm looking forward to the Falcons game as well. I love watching the Saints play in New Orleans, and that Patriots and Raiders game might have some good moments in it as well, especially if Derek Carr gets hot. I wouldn't be surprised if that turns into a shootout too. Even though I think the Patriots are going to win, anything can happen with Derek Carr on the field. We got some really good games this week, some really bad games this week, but I think it all averages out to a very good, entertaining week of football. I'm looking forward to see what happens. I'll have Red Zone on all Sunday and just kind of enjoy the marathon of football, so to speak. And if you have strong feelings on any of these games and you want to place a bet and try to win some money, but you don't want to actually risk any of your own money, the channel is still sponsored by our friends over at the BetDSI Sportsbook. Right now, all Film Room viewers and all channel subscribers, if you enter promo code FILM25, you get a free $25 wager credit that you can use to bet on any game, and any winnings you get, you do get to keep. You can use it to buy Christmas presents, you can double down and get even more money if you win even more bets. Whatever you want to do with it is up to you. You can do anything you want with it, and you don't have to risk any of your own money. So promo code FILM25 gets you a free $25 wager credit that you can use any way you want. It's a fantastic deal. We love BetDSI for hooking us up, especially with the Christmas season coming up. And, people are kind of looking for ways to get some extra side cash to buy some presents. I know I'm still eyeing that PS4 bundle, which, by the way, you can get a PS4 bundle at Kohl's, if you didn't know that. And apparently it's a really good price. So I'm eyeing that because I'm going to be at Kohl's anyway on Black Friday. And I'm going to use some of that extra, BetDSI winnings to go get me a PS4. God knows I've wanted it for a long time. But anyway, thank you again to BetDSI for the promo code. I will be back next week. I'll have another full Film Room episode. I'll have another picks video for next week's games. We'll see how I do this week. Hopefully I can get even higher up on my win rate. I'm at 63% right now. I want to get to 75%. So hopefully I do well this week, and I'll check back in with you guys next Thursday or possibly Friday, depending on how long it takes me to finish that episode. So until then, later.